Welcome back. There are 5 months left before the two-pot retirement system comes into effect in September this year. That's if the National Council of Provinces processes the Pension Funds Amendment Bill on time before the end of the 6th Parliament. The bill, together with the Revenue Laws Amendment Bill, which has already been passed by both houses, will make provision for pension fund members to have access to the savings pot. The bill is now before the NCOP, and it's anticipated it will be expedited so that it can be sent to the President for assent by May. For more on this, we now speak to Cosatu Parliamentary Coordinator Matthew Parks, and he joins us via our video link for more on this discussion. Matthew, thank you so much for your time this evening. 5 months left for the two-pot retirement system to kick in. Is all in full swing?
Yes, it is. Good evening. Thanks for having us. No, look, we're very confident. We will meet the 1st of September implementation date. We've made good progress. There are two bills that are before Parliament. The first bill, the Revenue Laws Amendment Bill, as you mentioned, was passed about 2 weeks ago by both houses. The second bill, which deals with the Government Employee Pension Fund, the Transnet and the Telecommunication Pension Funds, as well as some divorce issues, that's been passed by the National Assembly about a week ago. We've got dates for the National Council of Provinces when it comes back in mid-April from its recess to pass it in the Select Committee on Finance, to have hearings, and then to pass it in the National Council of Provinces too. So we're on track. We will definitely make sure it is passed long before Parliament rises and goes to the elections. And we're also going to make sure the President does sign it as well during the course of April, May. But we have time. There is a lot of good work that's been done. There's good progress and good momentum. There is still significant work that does need to be done because even after Parliament passes it and the President signs it, Treasury needs to promulgate it. SARS needs to adjust the tax systems, which is fairly straightforward. One significant amount of work that needs to be done is on the pension funds, who would also then need to amend their pension fund rules. But we've already had preliminary engagements with the pension funds, with the Financial Sector Conduct Authority, with Treasury and SARS. And why we're confident as well, besides the good momentum we're making, is that we have a consensus between Treasury and Government, between Parliament, Cosatu and the pension funds, all of us on the same page. We all agree that these new laws are critical. We all support the two-pot pension reforms, and we've all agreed to the 1st of September implementation date. So there's not often that you find such widespread consensus and everybody kind of rooting for the same position. So I think for us, we're quite optimistic. It will happen. I can lay my life on the line for it.
And time is a major factor, and you speak a lot about time and still the processes that still need to be followed. What if the National Council of Provinces does not approve of this on time? What happens then?
That'll be a disaster. That'll be a huge disaster. If they didn't do it, look, then it really makes things extremely complicated because then you have to wait for the next Parliament to come back. Look, theoretically, it could still be done, but it makes things just unnecessarily pressured. Parliament has amended the rules recently to allow any unfinished business by a previous Parliament to be simply continued by the new Parliament. So theoretically, if that did happen, which it won't happen, but let's say it did, the new Parliament, when it reconvenes in mid-June, it could just simply continue as is. And look, there wouldn't be much work to be done because by that stage, the Select Committee would have already had briefings, would have already had hearings and so forth. So that could theoretically then be done by the end of June. But we don't want to risk that because that then means there's pressure on the President to sign quicker. There's pressure on SARS and the pension funds, the Financial Sector Conduct Authority to kind of really sprint through it. And we don't want to do that. We want to give them as much time and as much space to do their work as possible. And there's no need to do that. The NCP can continue to work right up until about a week before the elections. The NCP is different than the National Assembly, that it remains in office until the new provincial legislatures are constituted, which is after the elections. So they will continue, and they have put dates already in it. It's already gone out for public comment in the NCP. There's dates for submissions next week. I think it's the 12th. They'll have hearings quite soon after that, within about a week. And then as soon as the NCP is back in mid-April, they'll be passing it as well. So I think for us, we're quite confident. And look, there's agreement amongst members of the National Council of Provinces that this is the priority bill. there is support for this bill, not only from the ANC, who has worked closely with Cosatu to process it to Parliament, but also from the other political parties too. So again, this is a very unique bill. It's not often you find everybody supporting it. And even when it was voted on in the National Assembly about 10 days ago, it didn't need to go for a roll call. All parties said they support it. There was not even a need to count a show of hands. It is unanimous. So from that vantage point, that really makes life much easier, because then you don't have political resistance. You don't have people making life complicated. You can then really expedite matters. And there is agreement to do so. So we're very confident we're on track.
Yeah, and you speak about a lot of people rooting for this, and there's a lot of support for this two-pot retirement system. But there are also concerns which have been raised by some experts, especially in the economics field, and some warning that there really is no need for somebody to tap into their retirement because it's meant for retirement. Is this a huge risk, especially in a country like ours? Of course, struggling with economic growth and problems associated with the economy. Is this wise to allow South Africans to tap into their retirement or their pension before they've even retired?
Yeah, look, those are valid questions, and yes, no, we've gone through that. And in fact, right now the problem with the law is that it gives you two choices. Either you wait for when you retire to access your pension fund, or you can access it immediately right now under the current law by resigning. So what currently happens is that most workers cash out the pension funds repeatedly long before they reach retirement. And as a consequence, only about 6% of South African workers can afford to retire. So when workers change jobs currently right now, they cash out, or if they're drowning in debt, they resign from their job and they cash out. So right now the law is very inflexible. It doesn't give people much choice. It doesn't suit the South African circumstances where many workers are highly indebted and they need some relief. The beauty about the new two-part pension reforms is that it allows workers choices. Workers can remain at work, but they can access a part of their pension fund. So we won't be having workers resigning in future to get some relief. Workers can access immediately from the 1st of September 10% of the existing savings up to 30,000 Rand to kind of help plug some immediate financial holes. But going forward, they would be able to access a third of future savings as well. But in the meantime as well, what's going to happen is that future savings are not going to be cashed out through resignations. That's part of the quid pro quo. And that's going to be a significant boost to savings, because right now, only 6% of workers are actually having the pension funds preserved when they reach retirement. So we're now going to be preserving 2/3, but at the same time allowing workers to remain at work, not having to resign, giving immediately from the 1st of September, but also once a year, giving workers access to a third of the future savings. But again, we're giving workers choices. Workers are also able, if they don't need to tap into it, which many workers have told us they don't want to tap into it, but they like the idea that if there is a need for them to access it, it is there in case of a rainy day. The system also will allow workers to accumulate the savings. Maybe they don't want to touch it for 3 or 4 years. They want to allow it to accumulate, to roll over, and to grow the interest. That can also happen. Workers now, under the current law, if they want relief, they have to cash out the entire pension fund. So you might find a worker currently, he's got a pension fund of R1 million. He cashes it out simply to pay off a debt of 100,000 Rand. Doesn't make sense. Under the new system, he could simply choose, let me just take the 100,000 Rand, let me leave the rest for retirement. So we're giving workers much more choices. There's always a risk in the system, but here there are many more safeguards, there's much more options, there's much more nuance. And at the end of the day, we also have confidence in workers that workers are responsible. They know as parents, as mothers and fathers, what is best for the family. But the reality is right now, the current system is inflexible. Right. It doesn't give workers much choices. It doesn't meet African circumstances. The new one does do that. And that's why we've had quite strong support for the proposals from the pension fund industry as well, who said this makes the most sense.
All right, Matthew, thank you so much for your time this evening here in SABC News. That is Matthew Parks, Cosatu Parliamentary Coordinator, talking to us there about the two-part retirement system. Of course, it is expected to come into effect in September. 5 months left before it comes into effect.